Well, good evening and welcome once again to Letchworth Cable Access. I'm Kyle Adamczak, and tonight our guest is Meghan Hauser, the coordinator of the Perry Chalk Art event that took place this past summer. Now, it was formerly known as the Perry Chalk Art Festival. Why the name change?
Well, Kyle, that was a special for this year. Hopefully, we'll go back to Perry Chalk Art Festival next year.
And this year you had to deal with COVID-19.
Yeah, so we wanted to make it clear to any
Yes.
visitors coming that this was not the same festival they were used to. It was really a celebration of community and celebration of art, celebration of music. So being able to make that clear in the name change we felt was important.
So what were the changes that took place that you had to deal with?
There were quite a few, but I think we were just so pleased to be able to put on an event.
Yes, I mean, you carried through. But what was the event like this year?
Okay, so for people that have been to the event before, the Chalking Spine in the Perry Festival Plaza, that was filled with artists, not as many as usual because we had to socially distance the adult artists. So that way they didn't have to wear masks while they were chalking. We felt that was just too much to ask.
Yes.
We did change the date this year to August because in July it was really unclear how things were unfolding in terms of things being able to open and whether level 4 events, which the festival was, would even be able to be held. So August worked out really well. This year we did not have the youth artists, we did not have aspiring artists, we didn't have our chalking wall that allows everyone to try a little chalking, just because we couldn't, with the guidance of the health department, we really couldn't say we could make sure people would be safe doing those things.
Yes.
We did not have the Taste of Summer this year. We didn't have any vendors, so really focusing on that celebration of community and art.
So you told us what you didn't have. What did you have?
Great asking, Kyle. We had 25 adult artists who are all
Yes.
professionals chalking.
All professional artists.
Yeah, and the theme this year was the 20s.
As in the 1920s?
Well, anyone's choice. We like to leave that a little bit, a room for people to use their imagination.
Yes.
We did see a lot of 1920s pieces this year, though.
Yes.
We did have live music, so we had 3 bands. The farmers market was still taking place in its alternate location on Borden Avenue. We had music there as well. We had a select series of vendors offering food. I think there were 4 or 5, just because we knew that people would need to eat something.
Yes.
And we had a great turnout from the community and great help from sponsors. Those are the things we did have.
So when did it take place in August?
It was August 15th.
August 15th.
Mm-hmm.
And was the weather cooperative that day?
Yeah, thank goodness, Kyle. It's always a little nerve-wracking leading up to that date, but that August date was fine.
Was it? So you had 25 artists, and they were spread out to be socially distant.
Yeah, fortunately
Did they have the same size squares to work on?
Yeah, they were still 5 by 5 squares, which is what made it easy to do the social distancing because we just left a square all the way around each artist. And then Bill Wendra, who does all of our graphics, made a nice tape line going around the plaza and did reminders so that the audience that came would know not to get too close to the artists as well.
How was the attendance as far as like spectators? Was it down, up, or were people afraid to come, or what was?
No, I think that I've never run an event before where our goal was to have a reduced attendance.
Yes.
So that was this year. Typically, so last year we would have said we had between 3,500 and 4,000 people attend.
Yes.
This year we were aiming for that 1,500 to 2,000, and I think that's what we hit.
Yes.
And that worked well.
Did you hear any comments from the people that attended?
People were so pleased. The artists were pleased, the performers were pleased, and the guests were pleased to be able to have an event to look forward to. Really,
Why was that?
fun.
Well, was it? Have there been a lot of events like this year?
Every chalk festival I'm aware of in Western New York has been canceled.
So you were the only one.
Yeah.
And as far as the musicians, they haven't had very many venues to perform in, have they?
No, they were thrilled. Really, at least two of them said to us, "This is the first time we've played since March in public."
Now, who did you have for music this year?
Well, it's a familiar lineup for people that come to the
Yes.
Chalk event. We started with Kelly's, Old Timers, and then we moved on to Creek Bend, and then we finished up with the Brothers Blue, and then out on by the farmers market we had Mr. Heartache.
Mr. Heartache.
Yeah.
And now the artists, were they all local people?
All from Western New York.
Yes.
We did have limitations until the week ahead of time. We had limitations on where people could come from.
That's right. That was the travel ban.
Yeah, we did have one artist from Ohio who was so disappointed she couldn't come Chalk. She just had a baby 6 weeks beforehand, so she knew she could come Chalk, and then there was a travel ban. And then a week ahead of time, the travel ban was listed, and she contacted me and said, "Can I please, do you still have room?" And we were able to fit her in so she could Chalk.
So did she have the record for traveling the farthest of Chalk?
This year, yes.
Yes.
We did have to cancel our 3D artists as well because they were coming from Wisconsin, and Wisconsin was a no travel state.
Now, you mentioned before we got on the air that there's a chalking circuit.
Mm-hmm.
Can you describe that to us?
Well, this is the first year I experienced it, Kyle.
Yes.
We had 4 or 5 artists that came in that were new to us this year.
Yes.
So we had brand new artists because, again, all the chalking festivals were canceled. So we had people we've never had. And they all knew each other. And I thought, how interesting that they all know each other. And when I asked, they explained that they go to 4 or 5 different chalk festivals in Western New York each year. So that was kind of neat.
Now, how did they hear about the Perry Perry event?
I think various ways. I do a lot of outreach, and many of them have heard of the event, but our event typically falls the same weekend as the Elmira Chalk Painting Festival. So many of them would go to Elmira.
Yes. Now, were they impressed by it, do you think? Or
We do a survey with the artists every year, and we got only positive comments.
Good.
So we hope to see them back.
So who were some of the artists that you had this year, and what did they do?
Oh, well, it would be great to see the artwork they did, Kyle.
We're going to show that. We're going to show the artwork.
I'll talk about Erica Thurkins, who was our feature artist this year.
Who was it?
Erica Thurkins, and she's from East Aurora.
Okay.
She had chalked last year and did on our theme of small, and she did the picture of Frodo from the movie Lord of the Rings.
That was last year.
Yeah. So this year she was our feature artist, and we set that up in a new way, again with that idea of, like you mentioned, perhaps people didn't feel comfortable coming out in a crowd. So we had her chalk under the covered pavilion on the Festival Plaza. That way her art would stick around for, we hope, for weeks, and it has continued to still be there. So people, if you didn't feel comfortable coming on that Saturday when there were going to be others around, you could come any other day and take a look at her artwork. So that worked really well, being able to see her continued, because she did an amazing piece. So being able to see it months later was a great reward. So she was under the pavilion.
Now, we're taping this in October.
Yes.
And it's still there.
It is still there. The very bottom of it, it was a 10 by 15 piece, so the very bottom has a little rain damage, but otherwise it looks pretty good.
Excellent.
A couple bike tire tracks, you know.
So you were saying?
So we had Erica, then a lot of people local people. We had Dan Butler from Perry, chalking again. We had Rachel Richter, also from Perry. And Kelsey and Lori Ames also chalked from Perry. So right within our community, we had a number of chalkers that people know and love.
Excellent, excellent. Now the theme, the 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the pieces dealt with the 1920s. What were some other examples of work? How was that theme illustrated?
TJ Dill had a rabbit wearing glasses for 20/20 vision.
Oh.
So I thought that was fun. Claire Wood, who was the artist from Ohio that just had a baby, focused on a big event in her life in 2020, which was having a family. So those were a couple different examples. The 1920s was very rich in imagery for people, so a lot of people did focus on the 1920s.
And what were some of those illustrations?
A lot of them had to do with flappers.
Yes.
and fine portraits of women. A lot had to do with suffragettes and women getting the vote. We had one that was prohibition themed with a still. And
So there was
others-
all sorts of things.
yes,
Now, have you named a theme for next year?
we started on that process, Kyle.
So you haven't come up with one yet?
We've
Yes,
narrowed it down
or
to
you haven't
4.
announced it yet?
No, we haven't announced it. We've narrowed it down to 4 right now.
Yes. So now, if someone wants to participate next year, I imagine you assume things are going to settle down next year,
We're hoping for that.
and
yes.
you'll have the festival again.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody wants to, an artist or anybody wants to participate, to chalk, how do they go about doing it?
Typically, they have to apply. So we have an application form on our website. The new one for 2021 has not been put up yet, but it will be typically in January.
And where is it? Where do you find that?
PerryChalkFestival.com.
Okay. But the form will be up presently.
Yes, and
Next
they could contact me and use the old
Yes.
form, and we could discuss what's happening.
So what are some of your memories of this year's event that you haven't shared with us?
Okay. Well, I was very pleased. We had contacted no sponsors until June because we felt reluctant to do that, not knowing whether businesses would be open, whether they would be able to have the financial wherewithal to sponsor a festival. So it was great for us to be able to know that these long-standing sponsors still wanted to participate. That was super.
Excellent.
To have a full slate of artists and have additional ones that contacted us and said we don't have the ability to have you, Chalk, and have them say, well, we look forward to next year. So knowing that artists are still looking forward to joining us, to have musicians just feel really good about performing, and to have audiences that were so appreciative to be able to be out.
Yes.
Everyone had to wear a mask on the plaza except the artists. So people were very understanding of that. That was great too.
You'd think they'd want to wear the masks because of the chalk dust.
No, artists do not want to
No,
wear
they
masks.
don't. They don't want to.
They're welcome to, but I think when you're out chalking from say 8 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Now, you
want
also
to have it.
mentioned before we state that there were international rules of some sort for chalk art festivals.
Mm-hmm.
What are those?
Typically, they'll designate the materials you can use. We had always used just pastels,
Yes.
and we learned that tempera is an acceptable medium for putting down your background. It's a much more, it's a quickly laid down versus using a piece of pastel or chalk to lay out a 5x5 square takes a long time.
Yes.
So we did allow tempera this year.
Tempera paint.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the primary one that I looked up, Kyle, after we
Yes.
had an artist bring that to our attention.
Yes. And so they started at what time in the morning?
Artists could start at 8. They came in at 8.
And they had to finish up by a certain time, or this year there was no end?
This year was much more relaxed. People were welcome to stay as late as they wanted. We planned to close things down at 4, but they could stay.
Yeah.
And most artists were done at that point.
Yes.
And we did have some artists say, due to my health, I just can't chalk this year. So we were glad to be able to allow them that flexibility as well.
Are there any rivalries among the artists?
I can detect none. No, they all really enjoy
So
working with
there's
each
no
other.
drama.
No drama.
Just pure chalk pleasure.
I do enjoy. We have a couple, a mother-daughter team. We have 2 friends that have been chalking for years. We had an art teacher and one of his students chalking. And that I find a lot of pleasure in that, seeing the different relationships that come up that way.
So there's a lot of camaraderie and
Yeah.
affection and friendship.
Exactly.
What did you miss most not doing this year?
Well, we all appreciate having the youth artists be part of the
Yes.
event because we think fostering artistic experiences for youth is really important. And it felt like not having the youth there, being able to see what the adult artists were doing, creating their own work on the theme, and having the sidewalks all filled with youth artists would be nice to have that. So we look forward to having that again next year.
Were prizes given this year?
No prizes. Again, we wanted to keep it very low pressure, so we did increase the stipend for each artist rather than have it prizes this year.
Oh, they get a cash stipend.
Yeah, we feel very strongly that artists need to be compensated for their work, so we, as a group, try to foster that idea.
You mean they shouldn't do it for free?
I think that artists prefer to be paid for their work.
Yes, I imagine so. They have to eat too.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons the sponsors are so glad to be part of it. They know
Yes.
that a majority of their sponsorship goes directly to the artists.
Yes. So you were the only festival this summer, or the
That
only
I'm
chalk
aware of,
art event
yeah.
that we're aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when is next year's set to take place? Has the date been picked yet?
Always the second Saturday of July.
Yes.
So as long as things are better in our communities, you'll be seeing us again then.
Well, all right. Well, I guess we'll wrap things up. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, Kyle, I think we covered everything. Just so glad that our community was happy and able to be there.
Well, once again, what's the website to check up for?
PerryChalkFestival.com.
And you can find what there?
Information about this year's event, applications. In the future, there'll be applications for next year's event, food vendor applications, things like that.
Yes.
Schedules.
Yes. Well, thank you for coming in, Megan.
Thanks, Kyle. I appreciate it.
Our guest was Meghan Hauser, the coordinator of the Perry Chalking event, formerly known as the Perry Chalk Art Festival, but it'll be called the Chalk Art Festival next year, I'm sure. I'm Kyle Adamczak. Thank you for watching. Good night.
Our last tune, one called a Swallowtail Jig. Mark Bansel, banjo and dobro. Chris Bansel on guitar. Sally Schenker fiddle. That's Richard Schaefer on the bass.
Come on, Sally, now you gotta just do it.
Hey, we are Creek Band. Stay tuned. Brothers Blue coming up.
Thank you very much.